7:34, 6 degrees at the airport. Good morning, everyone. Hours of debate will likely not change the outcome of a vote expected tonight regarding a Canadian combat mission in Iraq. The motion would support airstrikes for a period of 6 months with no ground troops. The Conservative majority means the motion is sure to pass this evening in Ottawa. In fact, the Harper government has already sent an advanced team of military advisors into the Middle East.
If we don't deal with ISIL and its ilk, they will deal with us. Anyone who accepts the premise that ISIL is a threat to our security while leaving the fight against ISIL to others is abrogating their moral responsibility.
A couple of polls already show the majority of Canadians support our country joining the U.S.-led campaign against Islamic extremists. The most recent poll finding 2/3 of Canadians strongly or somewhat support Canada sending jets to launch airstrikes on ISIS targets in the Middle East. Back here in Alberta, the town of Cardston is staying dry. For 109 years, liquor has not been sold or served in the town south of us. Residents are voting to keep it that way. The town holding a plebiscite on this issue. The final tally, votes counted 1,089 in favor of keeping a booze ban in place, only 347 in favor of lifting the ban. The mostly Mormon population in Cardston shunning the idea of allowing liquor sales, likely because of the teachings of their church.
I think this town needs to get into the 21st century.
I have no clue where this will go, but eventually change will happen.
I love that Cardston, that there's no alcohol here for sale, and I would love it to stay that way.
The plebiscite in Cardston is a non-binding vote, but the town's mayor says it is still significant because the results put this issue to rest.
We will review this. We especially want to know what is the percentage of the voters that came against the percentage of eligible voters.
It's a non-binding plebiscite today, so really it's just information gathering for the town council and for the mayor.
The nearest places to buy alcohol are Fort Macleod, north of Cardston, and of course the city of Lethbridge, which is north and east of the town. A new study is suggesting most grade 8 students in our country have a solid grasp of science. The Pan-Canadian Academic Program, administered every 3 years by a group representing provincial education ministers, looks at academic performance in reading, math, science, along with students in their final year of middle school. Alberta and Ontario scoring the top scores in science. BC and Newfoundland and Labrador scoring at or above the national average. Manitoba logging the lowest scores in reading, science, and in math. Mounties have a warning for whoever stole a radioactive device from a vehicle in northern Alberta, and that warning is to be careful and not to handle it. Even though it contains a minimal amount of radioactive substance, RCMP say nobody should be touching it. Police also say if the device is dropped or damaged, the dangerous substance, the radioactive substance inside, could leak. The theft, by the way, happening at an oil field site between Lac La Biche and Fort McMurray over the weekend. Time to focus on business. Business editor Mike Eppel joining us live from Toronto. Mike, a lot of talk this morning, the day after Post Media buys Sun Media.
Yeah, it was a big deal announced, wasn't it? The combination of two of the country's biggest newspaper chains, and it's kind of interesting how times have changed quite dramatically just, in the past decade or so. Not that long ago, back in 1998, it was the Toronto Star looking to buy the Toronto Sun and all of the Sun Media properties in a bid at that time around $900 million. And there was all sorts of hue and cry about competition. You couldn't have these two combining because it would lessen the competition in the media sector. Of course, at that time, Quebecor ended up doing a friendly deal with the Sun paper chain, and then 15 years later, we have Quebecor selling them for the discounted price of $316 million, 175 properties, including some real estate. So it shows the valuations on newspapers, but no one's too concerned about the fact that you've got in many cities, as Paul Godfrey, the head of Post Media, said yesterday, two newspapers published ostensibly by the same company going forward. This still has to clear the Competition Bureau, but again, they may sell some properties, but likely going to pass. And the other fact of the matter is, it's about advertising revenue. Where is that going? It's not necessarily at newspapers. It's going to the digital assets, which again, the Post Media Group was talking about. That is the growth segment seen going forward. So interesting times indeed in the media sector. International Monetary Fund, Ted, just announcing that they have lowered their global growth expectations again. And even though the U.S. U.S. is recovering, and Canada to some extent as well. The IMF looking at Europe, Japan, Russia, emerging markets. They're the trouble spots going into 2015. And again, we're seeing a settling back of the major markets this morning on economic concerns, and the TSX could in fact drop for an 11th time in 13 days. It's been a tough go for Canadian stocks. And we've talked about the drop in commodity prices, specifically grains, wheat, corn, soybeans, and that's having an impact on profitability for farmers. That's showing up in the numbers for the big agricultural equipment makers, AGCO and John Deere. AGCO put out a profit warning. Stocks down 11% at the opening of trade so far this morning. Ted, back to you.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Mike. Mike Heppel chatting with us from 680 News in Toronto. You can hear Mike on 660 News here in Calgary at 26 and 56 after the hour.
BT's